In today's video, I'm talking to Abby, who used to be a manager at Montessori Nursery and is now a tutor. If you're new to this channel, my name's Jenna. I'm a qualified primary school teacher, now a full-time tutor, and I chat to people about their experiences in education. If you like today's video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a supportive comment down below. Thank you very much for joining me today, Abby.
Oh, thank you.
It was lovely. So I have been looking into Montessori education recently, and I asked
Okay.
if anyone knew of anyone that was linked to it because I watch a fabulous Montessori teacher on TikTok. Can't remember
Uh,
her name at all, and I was really fascinated by it. But two other people recommended you, and you very gladly agreed to come on. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
no, it's thank you for having me. It's quite exciting.
Right, so this is the first question then. So when did you first realise that working in the education sector would be your future career?
I'm not entirely sure really. I I did a drama degree and I know
Ah,
that my dad throughout my whole sort of schooling and my degree was like, you should be a teacher, you should be a teacher. I was like, no. Um, and then I think doing a degree in drama made me kind of fall out of love with it a little bit.
ah.
Um, and then so I went from my degree to listening to my dad really and doing some experience in some schools, and it just kind of went from there.
And what about the drama degree? Did you not like? What aspects of it?
Um, it was all very serious.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was
Um,
all very much like it felt to me anyway that if it wasn't like a serious piece of drama, it wasn't worth doing, according to like the lecturers and the things like that. And I think also I realized that if I wanted to do drama, it was a very different way of life to what I wanted.
Yeah.
I wanted family life, and so I naively thought, yeah, teaching's great. We've got loads of holidays. It's wonderful.
Ah, until
Uh,
you started and you realised.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting because a lot of people, I think the joke was when you were younger, a lot of people are like, oh, I did this as a degree, but I didn't actually ever go into it at
Yeah.
all. But I suppose
Yeah.
you could say you did do drama later on, but in a child-friendly way,
Well,
which
exactly.
is
There's so many skills when that's why I really do promote drama, especially at like secondary level, because there's so many skills in it. Like there's confidence, there's talking to people, and there's so much in there, working together, collaborating. There's loads of skills there that are
yeah.
fantastic for loads of different jobs. But yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
lovely. So you decided to go into teaching.
Mhm.
What route did you decide to take?
I did a skit, um,
Okay.
which I really quite liked because there's a lot of practical classroom based things in that. Um, and I know that we did have essays to write and things like that as well. Um, but I didn't do very well on those bits because I was just focused on I want to be in the classroom, I want to learn to teach. I don't want to write an essay about it. So I obviously did well in the end, but it took a while to do those bits well.
So was it mostly, if I've got that right, do you know what the skit stands for? Because I can't remember.
Um,
If you don't, it's fine, but it is more practical based one,
School.
isn't it? It's
No,
like
I
a
can't
school
remember.
placement kind of one.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So
Fine.
if I'm right in thinking a PGC is there's more uni than
Yes.
yeah. So
Do
this was we
placements, whereas, and then the most of the time you're at the university.
yeah. So most of the time we were teaching. It wasn't school direct because that's
Okay.
just school. Um,
Hmm.
there was a bit of both. It was quite good. It was good.
Oh, lovely. And was it one school the whole year or was it different school?
So the plan was that you go to one school in the first term, change in the second term for a different key stage, and then go back to your first one. But I ended up staying at my second school
Oh,
just because
wow.
of circumstances and things that worked out better.
So, if you could say one positive, and I don't like to say negative, but
Yeah.
something that wasn't quite your cup of tea
Mm.
on the course, what would it be for the skit?
The positive was, well, I have to say my like when I joined, a new lady sort of took over as the head of it, and she to to start off with, she just had one sort of student that she was looking after, and that happened to be me. Which
Oh,
was really
wow.
nerve-wracking to start off with, but actually she was so kind and so nurturing that really worked for me. Um, and then the negative, I would have to say Probably the essays.
I don't like
And
essays. I
only
hate
because
them.
it just wasn't, I just wanted to be in the classroom. I was happy to learn the theories and I'm happy to do it, but I didn't see I couldn't quite match up me writing it into an essay as making me a better
Mm.
teacher in front of children
I think that was
myself.
one thing that comments were made about certain types of ways into teaching
Mm,
because I think with the PGC, some people said to me over time, "Oh, you didn't spend enough time in the classroom,"
mm,
because then when PGC students would come into schools, there was,
mm,
from my experience, there were comments saying that they'd learnt about the theory, but it hasn't been practiced enough within
yeah,
the classroom. So then they
yeah,
struggled when they had to take on like a full class.
yeah.
So
So by the end of our teaching practice, we were teaching 90% of the week. I don't know what that is like
oh,
in a PGCE, but we basically, obviously the teacher was there, but we were kind of doing it. So
oh,
it felt it felt like a big sort of thing when you first start that course, and like 90%, but it was, yeah, no, it was good.
that's very
I
good.
think it really prepared me well for going into the classroom.
Very good. So then you worked as a primary teacher for 4 years.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy this role? What kind of year groups did you do?
I was mostly in year one, which I
Oh,
loved.
lovely.
Yeah, and then moved to year four right at the end, which was quite a big
Yeah,
difference. But I really did like both year groups because year one, their their sort of wins and their gains are so small, but they are so big for them.
yeah,
So
really.
they suddenly know what this phoneme means, and you're like, yeah, they're so proud of themselves.
Oh,
Um, but then year four, the sort of the conversations you could have with them and the writing you could get out of them was obviously at a different level. And that was really nice too.
that's really good that you like both because some
Yeah,
people just like lower years and some people
yeah.
just like higher years. So it's nice that but you didn't have the pressure of year six, I suppose, so which was good.
No.
So that was
No.
better. So you obviously you like teaching of that, but you actually worked in schools for 7 years. So what was the other roles that you did?
Yeah, and that was sort of to include sort of the work experience that I did, and then I was an LSA. I was a teaching assistant there. I was a teaching assistant before as well, before I went on to my teaching
Um,
course. So I went from my degree teaching assistant to my teaching course.
and how did you find life? I've done the TA work as well. How did you
Yeah.
find life as a TA compared to then a teacher?
It's very different. I mean that was a long time ago, so I don't know what it's like now, but obviously you got to work with the children, you got to do all the nice things and then go home and
Oh, you didn't have all the
not have
paperwork.
yeah. Yeah, so it was really nice. I did love that job. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I think sometimes it's a nice stepping stone to show you if you want the job or
Yeah.
if you don't want the job
Yeah.
and you can not go through all the hassle.
Yes, definitely.
Because I have worked with some people that were like, I've seen how hard teachers work. I'm happy with where I'm at because
Yeah.
it seems quite intense
Yeah.
for many.
Yeah.
So then what made you not want to work in schools anymore?
Um, I had my daughter. I went back for a year and a half before I left, and I felt like I couldn't be a good enough teacher that I wanted to be. I couldn't put
Yeah.
my all into it and be a good enough mum that I wanted to be. It just
Yeah.
wasn't, I couldn't, I couldn't do both. And I'm someone that if I do something, I want to do it well. I don't want to do it half-heartedly. Um, so there was that, and there was I think I was in year four the year before they started the compulsory times table test. And I think I was just a bit fed up with all like the testing, and I just saw so many children go from like it was interesting because I had my year four class was the same class I had in year one as a teaching
Oh,
assistant.
wow, that's nice.
So I saw those children go from year one to year four, and I saw some of them go from, yay, I love learning to, oh, I can't do this, and I feel like a failure. And that was just heartbreaking. And it was every week we did like a times table challenge to get them ready for this test. And as soon as you said sometimes, oh, we're going to do, I can't remember what we called it, but also we're going to do the times tables, I saw half of the kids go, yes, and half of them go, give up. There's no point. I'm out of the room for the next 20 minutes because there's no point in me even trying.
Oh,
And
It's really sad, really, that,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you saw that visible
yeah.
change in their physical appearance,
Mm,
and that was at the beginning. And because it just makes it like pretty much every year group now has got some sort of element of a
yeah,
test.
yeah,
Now, like early years is the obviously
yeah.
the early years goals.
They've got the
Um,
baseline as well when they start.
yeah, the
Yeah,
baseline phonics test year one,
yeah.
SATs, even though it's not considered necessary anymore, but I know
Mm,
some schools are still doing it in year
yeah.
two. Multiplication, and then obviously SATs, which is the big one. And
Mm,
like some year sixes, they do it from the moment they start in September, the practice tests. And so you can see why they get out of love with teaching, with
yeah,
not
that,
teaching,
yeah,
sorry, with learning. So I
yeah.
can understand that. So when did you first hear about Montessori?
I first heard about it when I was on my teaching course, and it was like a 3-minute thing. And
This is the way we teach, but yes, there are other options
yeah,
that you can't
yeah.
look at.
Um, and then as a parent, I have heard about it lots. It's a bit of an it word in parenting.
Yeah,
Um, and that's a good thing, and it's not in some ways as well. Because
yeah.
um because lots of people think, oh, it's a wooden toy, it's a Montessori thing, and you're like, well, that's not really it. It's not really. That's not quite what
Yeah.
it is. But yeah,
Because
yeah.
some
So
things can become fashionable, can't they? But the
yeah,
understanding of it isn't
yeah,
actually always there. It's just the
yeah.
it thing at the time, which is
So
a bit
what
hard.
what lots of toy websites have started doing is going, we're a Montessori website and we sell Montessori toys, and you think and some people are, because as parents we're just so busy and we want to do what's best for our kids, and we know that it's because it's such a fashionable thing. Think people think, oh, that's Montessori, that must be good. That's what people are doing. I'm going to buy that. And I think some websites have started to like sort of hone in on that and to sell their stuff when actually there's so much lovely things. There's so many lovely things about Montessori that would be better to learn. Yeah.
So then, for if we could do a very brief introduction to Montessori, what would you say Montessori is based on your understanding and research?
It's really hard to say briefly what it is. Um, but I kind of see it as three main sort of branches.
Right.
And one is like the philosophy side. So what Maria Montessori sort of started. Um, and that's all to do with sort of following the child, following their interests, helping them be as independent as possible, following their natural way that a child learns based on their age and their stage. So it's helping them be as independent as possible as soon as possible, but not pushing them into it. So you
Mhm.
just give them like the right amount of help um, to help them do that. Um, because if we do everything for them, we give them the message that we're better than them, so why would they bother trying anyway? There's it's all about respecting the child, giving them lots of real life hands-on experiences to help them learn. Um, yeah, that's kind of really, really basic of the philosophy. And then you've got like the materials that you would find in a Montessori classroom, which you wouldn't necessarily find in your own home because you can do it in lots of different ways. And I really believe that the philosophy behind it is so much more important than the actual materials that she designed. So the materials are amazing and they work so well in the classroom because the
Mm.
way they work is they always go from the concrete material to the abstract. So if you're going to teach a child the numbers, for
Mhm.
example, you would always do one-to-one correspondence counting.
Mhm.
And once they can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you then move on to the abstract, which would
Mhm.
be actually learning what the numbers look like. So
Mhm.
you'd use I don't know if you've seen the sandpaper numbers or sandpaper letters.
Yes.
Yeah, so they feel what the shape feels like, and you teach
Um,
them what that number is, because that symbol actually to them just means nothing before you start
mm,
teaching them that.
mm.
And then you would match the one-to-one counting, so I can count this amount of objects and the number together. Does that make sense? So
They're matching up the step-by-step approach.
yeah, yeah. So you will always go from using the manipulatives to the abstract, which could be in our head or could be a scribble on a piece of paper or something, and then you match it together so that they are getting that this
Both
amount of objects
elements.
looks like this number.
Yeah.
That's
Bec-
what this number is.
yeah.
Does that make does
Yeah,
that
it
make
does
sense?
because I was a nursery teacher and
Yeah,
often parents would come in and send their children to me. They were like, they know all their numbers. I was like, oh, okay then. Because for some reason in society, we're obsessed with children knowing their numbers, knowing
yeah,
their letters. But
yeah,
often the children would come in and they would count to, I don't know, 20, 30,
yeah,
40. And then I'd show them a group of objects. I'd be like, okay, count five. And they didn't know. They
yeah,
didn't have a clue what I was
yeah,
on about. Or or if I'd encourage them, they'd be like, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, da, da, da,
yeah,
25. So
yeah,
there wasn't really that someone had told them to recite numbers
yeah,
and but they didn't like use like you were explaining about the concept and everything. They didn't know the concept of what the number actually meant.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
that seems a much better approach with the Montessori to
And
teach that way.
I
So
would have adults come into the classroom and they'd look at the stuff on the shelves and be like, oh, that's intimidating. And then I'd show them how it works, and they'd be like, oh, this makes sense to me now. Like things
mm,
that they were like, if only I'd been taught like this
mm,
when I was a kid, I wouldn't be scared of maths now.
yeah,
And you
because
think, oh,
maths is a big one with
it is,
adults.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
even me as a tutor teacher, I've always had anxiety about maths.
mm,
And I had a maths tutor when I was younger because it just
mm,
like if you show me a list of questions, I get a bit like, oh my goodness, I can't, whether it's a testing thing and I've been anxious about tests or
yeah.
something. But if you show me and you say, answer them now, I'll be like, I just need half an hour, give me
My
half
brain
an hour
just
to
switches
work
off.
it out. Because
Yeah,
it just like promotes instant fear in me
yeah,
with maths. And that's just not an isolated incident. That's tons
mm.
of people I've
Oh
spoken.
yeah, definitely.
And I don't know why, because the people that I remember my teachers, they used to love maths. The ones that
Mm.
taught it, they were loved it. But I don't know why it's a generational thing that
And
people are
I
terrified.
am sure that if we were taught, because I know that even when I was teaching in my year four class, there wasn't, and I didn't know Montessori then, there wasn't so much of a let's use these maths manipulatives to actually really understand the
Mm,
concept we're learning. It was very much this is the method on paper, but do we really understand what's going on beneath that?
mm,
And I
yeah.
really think if we understand what's going on beneath that, we can move to that abstract, and it's so much easier then to do those things. I just it's just such a lovely, it's really great.
That also links to, because I don't know about you, but everything, like you say, everything's got to be on paper
Yeah,
because of, in my experience, progress. And if
yeah,
it's not on
yeah,
paper, then the child's not progressing.
yeah.
And so I was like early years, that's what I trained in. So it's
Mm.
similar to Montessori, but obviously totally different.
Well, there's
Like,
loads of stuff in early years that actually comes directly from what Montessori did, which
yeah.
is yeah, when you think about it. But
But
sorry,
unless
carry on.
like, because they went through a thing of, oh, you have to take a picture of everything
Yeah,
to prove that learning's happening. And it's so like,
yeah.
not how it's meant to be. Like the teachers are not trusted then. Like
No.
I trust you unless it's in a book.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's really interesting.
I
And
remember a lesson observation when I was in year one, and it was first term, year one.
yeah.
And this lesson observation was, I loved the lesson. It was full of practical things. Everyone, we had like a carousel of activities. They all got to do all these practical activities. And I was slated for that lesson observation because nothing went in books. I was like, but you haven't,
Mm.
the next day was going to be moving into a book. You haven't talked to me at all about what my plans were. And it was really deflating. So I was like, well, that was actually a really good lesson. And the kids all loved it. They were all engaged. They were learning.
And then
Yeah.
that deflates you as a teacher
Mhm.
then because
Yeah.
you what you think that you know is wrong well according to other people
Mm.
it's wrong. And I think when
Mm.
you come out of teaching, and we'll obviously go into tutoring, we'll talk about that later a bit more, but you have to relearn kind of
Yeah.
because what you've been told in schools
Mm.
isn't necessarily always the right way. And what you knew, what your natural instincts were right, you
Mm.
learn further down the line, and that's
Yeah.
hard, that is.
Yeah.
So, how did you come across the manager role in a Montessori nursery?
So I had left teaching. I had no idea what I was going to do because I couldn't do it anymore. I just was like, no, that's it. I can't come back. Um, and I was looking at nursery roles. I was applying to anything, and I had no idea really about nurseries. And I ended up working in a nursery that was not nice, and
Oh,
um it wasn't a nice place. So I ended up actually reporting them to Ofsted, but that's another story. So then I was looking for more nurseries, and to be honest with you, I saw the Grimm's, the Grimm's Rainbow.
oh yes.
On There was an advert for this for the nursery, and there was a Grimm's Rainbow picture, and I was like, oh, that's where I'm going to go work. So I applied to them, I emailed them, I called them, I was like, hello, would you like me to come and work for you? And I went to my interview, and I was originally just employed as not just a practitioner at all, I didn't mean that, but as a practitioner. And the operations manager at the time said, oh, I've got a plan for you. And the next January, they were opening a new nursery, and they said, well, do you want to come and be the manager? And I said, that's scary, but yes, I will. Yeah.
Oh, and did you have to do a lot of learning then to be prepared for that
Yeah, so
one?
when I started at the nursery, I did a Montessori course.
Oh,
But I also had to learn, because I didn't know about the EYFS really at that point. So I learned all of that, and yeah, it was good.
oh. So then when you were there, excuse me one second,
But-
what, how was it different then to what you'd seen in schools?
So a classroom
Like a
of Mon
typical day, maybe.
mm, yeah. So a Montessori classroom will have something called a work cycle, which
Oh,
is
I've heard about
3 hours at least. Sorry.
I've heard about this.
Sorry. It's at least 3 hours, a chunk of
Mhm.
time where the children are doing what they want to do. Each other,
Right,
respecting the objects, things that they're using, and respecting themselves.
right.
They've got complete freedom to choose whatever they want on the shelves. So in a traditional classroom, you've got teacher in charge, children do what you say. This is different. So it's like more like a triangle. So you have children, teacher, and the prepared environment, and they're all just as important as each other.
Uh-huh.
So children can do what they want, they choose what they want. They could choose to do maths all day long, and that's absolutely fine with us, because they're going to learn it much better if they're interested in it, rather than saying, sorry, we can't do that now because we've got to go on to our literacy lesson. And the prepared environment is designed so that as a teacher, we are sitting back and we're observing the children and what they're doing. And we see, oh, that child can do that activity. They're ready for the next one. So you might just next day you put it on the shelf next to the one that they've just done and mastered. So then they'll see the next one. We teach them quite early on to go from left to right on the shelf with their activities.
Mm.
So it's very early, sort of left to right,
Mhm.
how we would read and write. So if you were in another country that goes from right to left, you do it in the opposite way.
Yeah.
Um, so the activities are designed so that they're kind of self-teaching. So the jumps between each activity it's just the right level of challenge for them, that they know, oh, this is a good challenge, but it's not too much that I'm going to give up. And that's kind of the prepared environment. We sit back, we observe, and we put out the things that the children need. So we just provide what they need. We do give we call them lessons, which sounds very formal, but it's not. We do sort of show them, like teach them the letters, and we might sit with one child at a time and do a little lesson with them. Then they can carry on with that activity as much as they want to before putting it back on the shelf. And then we might teach someone else a little lesson on something. But it's truly, when it works. I think Montessori said, the quote was, the sign of educational, I can't remember the exact words, but you got it right when you can sit
And
back
it
as a teacher
clicks.
and it just all happens in front of you.
So my inner teacher from years of being molded would be
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, progression. Oh my goodness. When
Mm.
do you do this subject? When do you do
Yeah.
that subject? How do
Yeah.
you check that? So if a child does maths all week,
Yeah.
they haven't done any, well, there will be English in there,
Mm.
obviously. There
Yeah.
will be understanding the world. There will be
Yeah.
all this. But like after years of being in education and
Yeah.
teachers saying to you, oh no, you can't just let that happen. You've got to get the English in, you've got to get the maths in, you've got to get the PSH in.
Mm.
So how do you keep an eye on Is it just that because there is also not Montessori, there is Anna F. Graves. Have you ever heard of her?
Don't think
She
so.
is very child-led, and
Mm,
it's very much follow the child, and the
mhm.
next steps are linked to what they see with the child, very much like Montessori.
Yeah.
And they just have individual logs for each child, and that's how they show their progress for that child. They don't do the whole structured English maths and everything. So, how do you do you have to keep records of, your observations and things like that to show a child's kind of progress, so to speak?
So I really liked these books because we had like the record and it had a little picture of every activity that is typically on a Montessori shelf
Right.
in the room.
Okay.
And we would just, if we saw that they've done it really well, we would just tick it off. But we were very much to the children, this is your book. This is not my book for me to write in. This is your book. I will write in it, but if you want to write in it too, you can. Um, so we would teach them, oh, you can look at this book. You can look on the shelf and the activities are out in front of you, but you can also look in this book and see, look, I've ticked this one off because I know that you can do that. This one, you might want to try this one next.
Okay.
But that's not what everyone would do. A lot of it is just down to trusting them and trusting that they will do the things that we want them to do if we let them. Like, I know that I've seen, like, if you, and this is quite common in year one, you push a child to read and you say, well, you must do this much reading a week. They push back harder. I don't want to do it.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's trusting that at some point they're going to want to learn to read because those squiggles on paper are interesting. They see that we're reading, they want to be able to do it too because
Mm.
it's interesting and they want to be like us, don't they?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, it goes back to trust. It's a lot of trust, and that's hard to do when you're molded, like you say.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do they know the skill? So if they are working on their own and they're working from their interests,
Mm,
has there ever been a child that has just because over the years, for me personally, there were some children, and we know it's the iPad generation, all that kind of thing, that didn't know how to play at all.
mm,
They were all they'd experienced was an iPad. So as soon as they went home, and we knew this from the families working with them, that kind of thing, that all they ever did was um go on an iPad. So when they
mm,
came into an environment where there was lots of toys and different things going on, some children would just stand there and they
mm,
didn't have a clue. So
mm,
we had to teach them how to play.
mhm.
Did you ever come across that? And how does that learning journey look for that child when you in a Montessori way?
So yeah, there are. Yeah, I have seen that, but I, I honestly, I don't. I have seen it, but again, I don't think it was ever a real big hurdle
Oh,
for
that's
us.
good.
Um, and I think it goes back to the prepared environment that we, as Montessori teachers, and like every other teacher as well, of course, understand natural development of a child, and we respect that, so we're not going to push them into anything they're not ready for. We set up the environment so it's ready for those children. So that child that isn't doesn't know how to play, we might try and find out anything that they're interested in because there's a big part of the classroom that's like the cultural shelves, and that's one of my favorite parts because you can change it completely depending on what they're interested in. So if we found anything that they're interested in, we would make an activity for them. We'd go, oh, they're interested in that, we'll make you an activity and we'll put it on the shelf, so it's a starting point. um but the other thing that we is when they first come into the classroom, if so typically, and I'm talking sort of the age 3 to 6 age,
Mhm.
um they would come in and we'd first show them what we call practical life. And these are activities that are like pouring water, threading beads, transferring objects from one pot to
Oh,
another.
yeah.
There might be shoe shining, how to clean your hands properly, and all these things that are basic life skills, but they kind of reflect what we hope they're kind of doing at home. So it helps them bridge that coming into nursery.
Mm. That's good.
does that answer your question or not?
Yeah, yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. Do you have like a book that sets out the activities? Or is it based on research that you find the activity? Like, does Montessori have a set book that you refer to? And these are the activities that are meant to be done at this age, at this age, this age. Is it
Um,
something like that?
I mean, there's loads of things, there's loads of research. Obviously, I know a lot of what I know from my course and from
Yes.
being trained by the other managers at the nursery.
Yeah.
Um, and there are lots of books which would set that out, but we have, like lots of nurseries are, um, lots of ages in one classroom.
Right.
So it's kind of set out so that they can access whatever they want. They
So
don't
the
have to,
challenge is always there for
yeah,
child.
yeah. But also the older children, so typically Montessori did 3 to 6, which is kind of rare to find in this country because they start school before then. Um, the older children in the classroom, you'd often find actually that they would get an activity out for a new child and they'd show them how to do it. So you don't have
Oh,
to give all the lessons. Actually, the older children are doing it for the younger children because it helps them to master it. They're at an age where they think, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing now. I'm confident with this. And they actually help the younger children, which helps them, the younger children come in and feel comfortable as well. So it's like a
oh.
right little community. It's lovely.
Oh, that sounds really sweet. And again, this is a very teacher-led question, but do you have to do things like register time and assembly time and any points where you've all got to come together? Do you have to do anything like that in the day?
We we did at the nursery, we did circle time. But again, they didn't have to join. If they were really interested and they were really focused on what they were doing, we would never break that child's concentration and say, you have to come and do this now. Because actually they're learning really, really well if they're that concentrated, they're focused.
Yeah.
Um, Generally we'd find that most children would like to come and do circle time and sing with us and chat about what's going on and stuff. But sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes they'd want to help set up for lunch or set up the garden. They got to make their independent choices as well with that. So
And
yes and no.
and this is a very teachery question. Did Ofsted ever visit or do they
Yeah,
visit Montessori
yeah.
nurseries and how do
Because
they respond?
it's all sort of it's all the same, regulated in the same way. Yeah, and they love it because every time the EYFS changes, it changes to be more Montessori. So the most recent change is all about their speech and language, making independent choices. Are they growing up to be their own person? And actually, that's all what we're about.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we did very, very well at Ofsted.
Oh, that's good. So, like, you would follow the earliest curriculum, but from a Montessori perspective.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Right, my brain's
No,
lots of
it's fine.
questions that I'm
It's
going to
fine
move
because
this
it's
on because my
yeah,
brain's just like, it sounds really, really good. So I'm just
yeah.
like, but then I'm thinking of this. And anyway, was there anything that you thought about Montessori, thought, oh, that doesn't quite work. I'm not quite keen on that. Or was it pretty much positive?
Mm, I think, to be honest, it is all positive.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so good. That's really, really nice.
Out there, some people read about Montessori and they get the impression that it's all very maths literacy, you must do this, it's all very regimented and very like, because you will see children working on their own. It doesn't mean they can't work together. And it's not, I'd have parents come around and say, well, it seems a bit strict that they have to ask if they can join in with someone else's work or something. I think, oh, they're just learning their life skills and it it's not as regimented as people sometimes think. And because you're following the child, you're following their interests, actually, there is loads of art. There is loads of learning about the world. It's not all we're going to learn this maths and literacy. It's fine if they want to, but again, it's their interests and following them,
And are
taking their
parents
lead.
generally supportive when they
Yeah.
take, do they do any come and think, oh, I know this is what it's all about, but when
Mm.
they come, they might be pressurized by society or family saying, oh, they need to be doing this and they need to be doing that. did you ever have anything like that?
Um, I did, yeah, we had, as I was doing sort of show rounds, I had parents sort of not be like, I'd say, well, if they want to do that maths all day, they can. Um, there'd be parents that would be like, oh, really? But I think if you've got the passion to understand and explain it to them, they
Mm,
kind of, I think all parents really came around and were like, oh, yeah, okay.
mm.
This is great. And yeah.
Yeah, because we live in a world where we're obsessed with worksheets.
Yeah, but we don't really have any worksheets in Montessori. Like
Yeah. A
it's all
normal
lovely
school, well,
practical
not
things and
normal,
it's lovely. Yeah.
that would be nice. Not having to sticking endless worksheets.
And
So,
what I'm saying is it's all based in the 3 to 6 range. I haven't worked in a Montessori primary school, so I
oh,
can't say that I it's yeah, I can't say what it's like there, but the philosophy is the same and the so it can't be much different. It wouldn't be much different.
oh.
But I think
Um,
they take on more like bigger projects at an older age, but it's definitely something I'm learning about at the moment. I'm trying to find out more about because it's interesting to me.
And this is going to sound really ignorant, but I didn't even realise there was Montessori primary school. So I thought it was just
Mm.
nursery. So that is a whole research path I have to go
Well,
down and look
there
at.
are, but the government doesn't seem to.
Hmm.
I think the government listens when we're in early years. In some ways, early years is going well because we are following children and we treat a child as a child, not as a can you pass this test? And then I don't something happens that does.
Mm.
But
Going to
there
test
are,
workers.
but they're obviously private. So Montessori is the basis is for every child. Every child can be in it and be successful, but not in a way our society works because it's only private schools that really are Montessori. So yeah.
Right. Okay. So if you are talking to a parent and you're out of the setting of a school and you're not in a Montessori nursery,
Mm.
what would you recommend to a new parent to them? Would you say yes, go to a school nursery or no, go to a Montessori nursery?
I would say if you can go to the Montessori one because the skills that they will learn are skills that they'll learn for life, and it's things like making their own decisions independently, thinking for themselves, and things like that. I would say if you can't, which lots of people can't, because there just isn't there aren't many compared to other nurseries and school nurseries. Know that lots of the skills that Montessori teaches us are done anyway in early years. So there's lots there anyway. And learn the philosophy, learn the basic things about the philosophy, and you can do all of that at home. The philosophy can be done at home, and there's so much you can do yourself
Mhm.
if you're armed with that knowledge. So
Because
yeah.
can they be quite expensive, some of the Montessori nurseries? Is that right?
Um, not necessarily.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. It depends. I mean, like any nursery, it depends whether they take funding because not they don't have to take funding.
Right.
Um, we did, but and it was yeah, it was a little bit more expensive. But then there are some other nurseries that are really expensive as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, lovely. So, when did you first then start to hear about tutoring?
I think I've always sort of had it in the back of my head of well, I've got my teaching skills, so that's something I could do one day. Yeah, I'm not
Oh,
sure when I first heard about it, but I was I've just had my son's just turned 1, so I was thinking about returning to work or not returning to work, and I knew that I couldn't go back to doing because as a manager I was doing 10-hour days,
mm,
um, which is fine. It's fine because I would often do like 4 10-hour days and have an extra day off, which was quite nice. But what I didn't want is the responsibility of the team behind me as well.
It's a big role
Um,
as a manager.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Which one of my favorite things about being a manager was having that team and sort of leading them and supporting them in their Montessori teaching as well. And personally as well, I really liked doing that, but I couldn't. I knew that I couldn't have 2 kids and go and do that as well. And I just like similar to when I gave up teaching, I couldn't do both. I thought I have to find something else to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then when did you officially start your tutoring business?
Like February this year.
Oh,
So it's really new.
wow.
It's all very brand new. Yeah.
Oh, so you're very much at the beginning. So what does
Yes. Yeah.
your business look like at the minute? So is it online? Is it face to face? How are you running it at the moment?
At the moment, face to face, tuition, and then I've got a couple of groups as well. So I'm doing two classes. One is for home educated children, and it's learning about maths, but within that, what art can we find in maths, and how can we mix art and maths together? Um, and a preschooler class, which is about it's kind of like all the Montessori things that we've been talking about. So it's aimed to help parents to put their philosophy in at home if they haven't got it at a nursery.
Oh, that's really
Um, and then
interesting.
this week I'm also starting some after school clubs as well. But I'm considering online, I'm considering doing parent workshops,
Oh,
nursery, maybe consultancy eventually one day when I have more time. But yeah, yeah, got
oh,
lots of ideas.
lovely. And you're face to face. Do you go to children's homes or do they come to you?
There is nowhere in my house to have them here, so I am going to their houses. Yeah, yeah.
And how did you find that going from obviously you were a primary teacher with 30
Mm,
children in the class, then
mm,
a nursery manager with lots of children, obviously,
mm.
to working with a child one to one? How long would you work with a child? Because different tutors offer different lengths of lesson.
Yeah, I'm offering different lengths depending on the child. Again, child-led and what works for them. So I've got someone that's just half an hour because that's what works for them.
Mhm.
Um, but going to one is nice. I really like it because in a class of 30, no matter how hard you try, you can't individually meet every single child's individual needs.
Mm.
You can differentiate in many different ways, but when you're one to one, you can adapt your plan as you're going along, and you can really hone in on what skills they need to learn to help them grow. So I'm really enjoying it.
And when you're teaching them, do you use Montessori techniques or do you use more formal techniques? Or do you discuss it with the parent to
Mm.
decide what's best for the child?
It's definitely a bit of both. Yeah, because if it is a maths thing, I know from my Montessori teaching that I'll always go for the practical first, and I will assess that knowledge before we move on to the abstract. So I might not be using the Montessori materials all the time, but the philosophy behind it is really great. So following that, really, yeah, yeah,
That's really good. And then you've obviously got lots of plans for different things that you want to do. And how have you found like working with different markets, like the home education market? Have you enjoyed that?
yeah. I think they're very quite receptive. They often home educated children are home educated from the start, or have gone into education and parents have got fed up with the way the system works, so they've come out of it and they're looking for something different. So
Mm.
often Montessori is a kind of is a nice thing for them. They kind of look for that and they think, oh, that's interesting. Let's try that.
Oh,
Yeah.
lovely. And how have you found the tutoring community? Have you like when did you open up your Facebook page and when did you
Mm.
start advertising and things like that?
So I think I started it in the middle of the night, one night on a night feed. It was just like, just go for it.
Love
To
that.
my husband, like
What
the
should
next day,
I
he's
do
like,
tonight?
no way. I've done this.
Like what?
Yeah, lots of people are really interested, and I would say in the last few weeks actually I've got quite a lot of other tutors following me and asking questions and interested. So yeah, it's good.
Oh, because you have got that different element, your unique
Yeah,
selling point, which is
yeah,
great.
yeah,
And obviously, since lockdown, people want different now. Like there is
yeah.
so much different types of work out there, and
Hmm.
there's so much terminology which I didn't know about. World schooling, unschooling,
Mm,
Montessori, which I never knew
yeah.
about. It's a hush word. A whole different range. So it's
Mm,
lovely that there are so many tutors now and they offer so many different things and
yeah,
it caters to so many individual people, which is really, really
yeah.
nice.
I never knew about the amount of like just art clubs or baking clubs or things like that. And I think, oh, that's so wonderful that people are just joining online just to bake because that's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, it is nice. I do a
Mm.
baking club and it's just
Yeah,
really, the kids are just themselves. They absolutely love it.
yeah,
It's really, really nice one because there just isn't that chance in school.
no,
They're doing maths, then English, phonics, and then if they're lucky, they get to do some sort of other subject in the afternoon.
yeah,
That was a massive shock to me when I went on supply and like year one classes, just 6 hours sitting down. It was such a shock to the system.
yeah.
So, and obviously now we see the reports of, kids not going into school, a lot of kids home educating now. So things are changing in the education system a lot.
And so does then not every child is going to be good at maths or English, or they might be good at it but not particularly interested. So they might want to do baking, and that's
Yeah.
fine.
And you can
That makes them happy.
incorporate all
That's
the different skills as well. It's
yeah.
not just,
I think it's really good for their mental health to be doing things like that. Like,
yeah, definitely. So, just before we finish, I've got two more
mm,
questions.
yeah.
If a new tutor was starting out, maybe with a Montessori background or a different type of educational background, what advice would you give them starting out?
I don't know. I feel like I need the advice at the moment. Um, I would do something you're passionate about because it's not easy to start a new business.
No,
And there are setbacks, but so you've got to be passionate and you've got to have a vision that it's going to work.
yeah.
I would say that's what I'm keep telling myself anyway.
No, you do have to, you always have to, um, something else will always come tomorrow. That's my motto
Yeah.
because it's not the secure job like teaching, where
Mm,
that paycheck is coming every month. And I think I definitely took that for granted in
mm,
permanent teaching. And as a tutor, if you want it to work, you have to look at different avenues.
hmm.
You know, many tutors don't just offer one-to-one teaching.
Yeah.
You start off with that, but there are many, you have to look at different avenues, group lessons, like you say, parent workshops, maybe
Mm,
courses, whatever it is, because not only will it keep your business going, but it will keep your mind active and it will
yeah.
keep you challenging yourself because um like with teaching, I think because you end up doing this, even though it's a different class, you pretty much do the same thing every year in
Hmm.
teaching.
Hmm.
And for me personally, I got to a point where I was like, I don't want to keep repeating this
Mm.
year in, year out. It's not fun for your brain. You've got to
No,
like
it's not.
challenge
No,
your
no.
brain. But yeah, you do have to keep thinking it'll be okay. Something will come along tomorrow. If today doesn't work out,
Yeah.
tomorrow will come along.
Yeah.
So something will different. So yes. So let's round up then. So
Mm,
where can people find you? And
okay.
what exactly are you offering at the moment?
So I am Abby's Montessori Tuition on Instagram and Facebook. Um, and I am offering at the moment one-to-one tuition. I'm open to doing groups if there was a little group of people that wanted to come along, and I'm offering some classes as well. Um, and the classes are I've got one called Math Artmatics, and Montessori Roots, and they're on a Wednesday morning in Bury St Edmunds.
Oh, lovely. And I'll leave all your details below. So if
Okay,
anyone wants to get in touch with you, they can. But thank you
lovely.
very much. It's
No,
been
thank you.
really amazing chat and I've learned so much from you. And
Oh,
I'm going
good.
to research even more now after our
Yeah.
chat. So I've got so many questions.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's been nice
Lovely.
talking to you.
Ah, thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for watching. And if you like today's video, please make sure to subscribe to see who else I'm chatting to and check out Abby in the link in the description. Thanks for watching.